Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AskPiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. I'm Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode. It's episode 4 of season 6, but more importantly, episode 150, if you're counting from the beginning. Very grateful to get to this milestone, that's for sure, and we'll touch on it a little bit later in the show because we need to get through some of the more dire stuff that's happened over the last few days because it was a horror night that unfolded at the MCG last Friday. We succumbed to a strong Sydney outfit, went down by 33 points, and we've started our season 0-2. Today, we delve deep into the issues that took place last week, get some strong feedback, and believe me, they were pretty strong on AskPiesNation. Plus, we see our Guess the Crowd competition return and preview what is now a must-win clash against the Saints this Thursday. And a bit like the 20-minute mark of the final term on Friday night, our studio's just fizzled out a little bit.
It's funny what happens when you lose.
Myself and Luke. Lukey, tough night on Friday night, that's for sure. Nothing seemed to go right from the start, and we face a little bit of a tricky situation to get past.
Yeah, almost a perfect storm in a sense that I've been a little bit in denial, I guess, through the GWS game. Like, it'll come good. And then that ends the way it does, and we end up nearly getting blown out in that one. And then we get to this week, and it's like, nah, we'll come good tonight. We're back at the G, flag unfurling. Boys will be pumped. And I thought we started okay, managed to lead into quarter time, but Sydney actually pretty much dominated a lot of that first quarter, and then it just kind of went from bad to worse after that. And it ended up being in a position where we're really going to get blown out again. Thankfully, we pegged a few back late to make it quite respectable, but it took me till pretty much the end to go, we might be in a little bit of trouble here. 0-2 is a bit daunting. It isn't the end of the world like a lot of people are carrying on about. Footy media, opposition fans. We can't make finals. We can't make the grand final. It's all over. We might as well cancel the season going off how some people are reacting. But yeah, it kind of sets up a massive game this Thursday against St Kilda very early in the season. I don't know about you, but I don't know, it kind of has got me back into it in a sense. That,
what do you mean?
I don't know. It was just so chill the first couple of weeks for me as a supporter, coming off the flag and everything just going so well. And now it's a bit like it's back to, backs against the wall. Everyone's talking, crap about us. I don't know. It's just given me that bit of spark again to go, you know what, I'm a bit pumped and a bit motivated for us to get going again.
So the Pies did that on purpose, you reckon?
Well, and it might work. And it might work for them because it's really hard being, I guess, the ones in front and the ones that everyone's chasing. And now all of a sudden, in a matter of 2 weeks, we've gone from that to now we're just back in the pack, and now we're chasing and sort of the underdog in a sense again. I don't know. It can change very quickly, but it feels like, I don't know, that pressure of the back-to-back is all of a sudden gone because so many people have all of a sudden wrote us off, that we're just, back in the pack and able to do our thing quietly. So I don't know. It's sort of reinvigorated my motivations for this year, and now I just want the boys to get going because it's a point to prove to everyone, like we didn't just fluke it, it wasn't just a lucky premiership. I really want us to get going so we can prove that we are the best team in the
Interesting
competition.
Perspective. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think there's some merit there, that's for sure. But I agree. I'm glad that it's such a quick turnaround to St Kilda because the focus can just go straight onto that. And I mean, we're recording on a Monday. The game's on a Thursday night, so it's certainly not too far away. But to get to St Kilda, we have to go through Sydney. So let's delve into how that night unfolded. And to be honest, it was a debacle from about 6:24 p.m, Luke, when the flag was unfurled in front of a measly 10 to 12,000 people. It was a disaster, let's be honest. I mean, this is not saying that we're ungrateful for the fact that we get this opportunity to unfurl the flag. I thought it was a great opportunity for us fans to come together and use it as the one final reflection on what was an incredible time in our lives. But whether it was the club's fault, the MCG's fault, or the AFL's fault, I don't know who to blame here, but the way it was conducted was very disappointing in the fact that it was so early on a Friday night game, especially when people, myself included, struggled to even get there. It was just a disappointing result. It just didn't have the fanfare that you would expect from a flag unfurling. I think I remember when Richmond had done theirs previously, it was much closer to the start of the game. Even a 7 o'clock unfurling, I think, would have been handy for a lot of supporters, and a lot more could have gotten there. But you managed to make it, is that right?
Well, I scanned in as it was starting,
Right.
so I got to like standing room perspective and was at the opposite end of the ground. So I watched a lot of it just on the screens. But yeah, it was pretty empty. A lot of people in a similar boat just didn't quite get to their seats, so we're just standing around watching it from the outskirts a bit. And yeah, it was pretty much over in 5 minutes, and it was about 6:30, 6:35 roughly,
Done.
and it was. Looking out, I'm like, why couldn't this have been done half an hour later? At least at a minimum, half an hour later. So 7 o'clock, get a few more in there.
7:40 start, so it's not as if it was any closer. Well, really, any closer to the start of the game.
So I end up rushing to get in because it was kind of one of those things. I'm like, well, I'm close enough. I might as well get in, and at least I can say I've seen it. So I end up rushing for kind of no reason. It was nice to see, but it was kind of like, now what do I do for an hour and 10 minutes? Caught up with Jack.
He would have been loving it.
He was not happy at all. He as well got in there early enough to see it, but then he was in the same boat. Like, gee, this is just so early now. What a disappointing turnout. Not begrudging on the fans or anything, because it wasn't their fault. It's very hard to get in to the City MCG 6 o'clock on you had to actually be into the ground by 6 just to have enough time to go get your seat, get down there. So yeah, it was a really disappointing. I don't know. Don't want to blame the club, but
well, we don't actually know. I don't actually know who decided
who to blame. But surely they're not silly. Like Friday night. 6:30, like you're not going to get many people. It's exactly why they've never really brought the games forward on a Friday night. It's been so hard, and now we've all of a sudden got 7:40, so 10 minutes difference. But still, they're probably not going to bring them any earlier than that. So because of that reason, people can't get in there. People just won't go. So yeah, there was a few moments throughout it. I'm like, God, this would have been epic with 60, 70, 80,000 Collingwood fans in here,
chant rolling around.
And I reckon it would have been perfect to do it and then have the team run out.
Yeah.
Everyone cheering up and about, and then, you get the Collingwood song going. I reckon that would have been perfect. But the way it happened, it just was like,
Yeah.
And then
just came and went.
Yeah. And disappointing for such a big moment for the club.
Yeah.
So,
but we thought we'll just push that aside, and when we get to the game, we're going to be a different team than we were against the Giants. Fortunately, not to be. So, looking at this review in a bit more detail, we start, of course, with the pie that caught your eye. So, don't know how many there were to choose from here, Lukey. A pretty small field, I could imagine, for the good reasons. But who did you lean towards on this occasion?
Not many good reasons. I couldn't go with Nick Dacos again. He was sublime once again. Lockie Schultz, pie that caught my eye now. He's a bit of a high prize recruit that's come in, and don't want to go too harshly on him. It's been pretty hard for the forwards, but no, he's just struggled a bit again on Friday night. Trying his guts out, but just, I don't know, it's just getting into the wrong spots at the wrong times, and a bit messy with his ball use, and I don't know, just struggling a little. He did kick the 2 goals, and it was nice for him to get his first goal on the board. But
I thought that first goal that he kicked was going to be the real trendsetter.
It
Once
did feel like that,
the momentum swings around. But
it definitely got me pumped and up and about, and I thought, here we go, like Collingwood's back. But yeah, I don't want to be too harsh on him, because it has been hard for the forwards out there at the moment, and the ball use that's coming inside 50. But yeah, he's got a bit to work on as we go on towards the season.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't the only one in terms of efficiency and getting into the right spots. We're going to get to that very shortly. But the whole idea of this segment is about someone that caught your eye. And to be honest, on a pretty disappointing night, you might not want to talk about Nick Dacos. I certainly am, because he was the only one that seemed to have produced consistent amounts of effort throughout the night to try and get something going. I mean, first on paper, you look at the stats and you think this is a 3-vote performance for me. We won by 5 or so goals, 37 touches, 15 contested possessions. So we can shut all those people up that say that he doesn't get his own footy. 6 marks, goals, 7 score involvements, over 400 metres gained, 6 inside 50s, 23 pressure acts. So the stats speak for themselves. But if you actually see him and the amount of work that he's trying to do to build something, a lot of Collingwood players were looking for him every time they got the football, which Sydney probably found out at times, and that resulted in us having a lot of turnovers. I mean, I think it was Sidebottom early that tried to do that, handballed it straight across to the Swans, and they were able to kick an early goal. But it just seemed like Dacos was... We don't like being a one-person team, but that's what it certainly felt like. He was the only one efficient with his ball use. He was the only one getting into the right spots. He was the only one able to pierce that Sydney wall. He was just everywhere. And for him at his age and approaching his 50th game this weekend, of course, to have that stature and take the game by the scruff of its neck when we really didn't have anybody else standing up, it speaks merits about him as a player, but speaks a lot about where we're at right now, because we cannot be simply relying on Nick Dacos. I think Fox Footy was saying that when Sydney got on a run of goals in the second term, Nick Dacos was off the ground. Now, could be a coincidence, but the correlation wouldn't be too far to suggest that when he's on the field, Collingwood are a better side. So I think we need to sharpen that up a little bit and try find a bit more contributors. We had a lot of passengers on Friday night, which is not something you often say about a Fly McRae Collingwood team, but it certainly was the case. And that's why Nick Dacos caught my eye. He was just incredibly, as I said, efficient with his ball use, and he just has an ability to try get things going. He even kicked a goal, an important goal for us once again when we needed it. So, yeah, hard to say. I mean, we could talk about Nick Dacos every week, that's for sure. But when it's a game like this and he was just so constant in what he was doing, it's pretty hard to ignore what influence he has on a game. So that's Nick Dacos, and that's probably one of the few positives that I'm going to bring to the table tonight. But nothing went right at all in this game. And from quarter time, the Swans were just in total control. They, again, I said it when we played GWS, but they beat us at our own game a little bit. Their pressure was second to none, and we had no answers for it. We kept tracking back, and we couldn't find any situations to get out of those tight spaces that Sydney was sort of bringing in. But the disposal, our efficiency is disgusting, Luke. It is terrible. I cannot believe that we have come from a side over the last 2 years that have been so influential with their ball use to a side that can't even produce a simple handball at the moment. And it's not necessarily, and again, give credit to Sydney because their pressure was outstanding, but it's not just from that. It's our decision-making as well. Just poor, substandard. And it's the difference between games. Sydney, you see their use of the ball. It's slick. It's quick. It gets our defenders on the back foot straight away. And as I said, we don't have any answers for it. So the efficiency and our disposal use was very disappointing to a point where Sydney were just able to score off turnovers for fun. Very disappointing.
Yeah, it was quite a tough watch with our ball movement, and it's been hard because it's been so, as you said, supreme and elite over the last couple of years that now all of a sudden we're like still hand, that one you brought up before, handballing it straight to a Swans player to go in for a goal. And another week of goals coming from the goal square. I think Sydney might have kicked 5 or 6.
McDonald kicked 4 goals for the night, and 3 of them came from the goal square.
It's incredible. That is local league, stuff. That is stuff when you're getting done by 100, 150 points at local league. Let alone at AFL level. So it's incredible for a premiership side to, and that's, I guess, been the frustrating thing for a lot of people is we haven't just lost these opening 2 and gone down by, 10 points and really looked really good at times. We've looked quite poor for most of it. And like you said, substandard at times. So our ball use defensively, again, we just let Sydney go from end to end without much body contact. Some very easy scoring movements by them. I don't know. There's been a couple mentions in the AskPiesNation about potentially the game plan being changed up quite a fair bit, and I guess trying to work through that. And that might be affecting some players' decision-making when they do have the footy and kind of being in two minds about, well, this is what I've done last year, but this year I've got to do this. So kind of being a bit confused and not on the same page. A few different players in there as well. So potentially that's playing a little bit of a part. And I think defensively it definitely is because we seem to be nowhere near him. I don't know. I'm not the greatest analyst of football, but if you're letting, opposition players 20 metres away from you and they're going end to end with ease, it's clearly not working.
Well, and I'm sure Fly's not listening to us with words of wisdom about how to coach the game, but something that you don't need to change your game style for is effort. And there was a big lack of effort from our players. We weren't winning those 50-50s. I think 12 months ago, do you remember me saying against Geelong that we could have played for another 4 or 5 quarters? We were done by quarter time. We were so slow and stagnant moving around the middle of the ground. We looked incredibly tired compared to, as I said, a slick Sydney outfit. And it mattered, again, you look at the stats and the amount of scores that Sydney had from intercepts, but they had 21 more tackles than us. And at one point, Sydney were leading this game by almost 10 goals. That is inexcusable for a side of Collingwood's ilk to have those statistics handed to you at the end of the game. We had 3 tackles inside 50 halfway through the third quarter. That says everything you need to know about how that game was played. Sydney, if that ball entered our inside 50 area, Sydney were able to take it out of there in a matter of seconds. And not only that, their transition football from defence to attack, we had no answers for because we were either pushing too far up the ground or we just weren't making an effort to get back and provide numbers to the contest, which we had usually done. Because that ball has been getting out of their forward 50 so quickly, our defence don't have time to set up. And as a result, Sydney have just been able to rebound every single time. And I mean, you look at the fact that 27 forward half intercepts for Sydney. They kicked 7 goals, 5. They kicked 12 goals in total from intercepts alone. That's absurd. And I think, again, Fox Footy was saying on Friday night, these are numbers that we would never see from a Fly McRae coach Collingwood team right now. And yet this is exactly what's happening. No answers for their pressure. The tackles were shocking and it was the difference in the game.
Yeah, it's not good right now, and that's what I don't know. It's that he's spoken about a bit of a wake-up call, and it got mentioned in the press conference. Is this the wake-up call that's required? And he's kind of brushed it off a little, but I genuinely think it could be. It's come so early, thankfully, that we have so much time to turn things around, but it's trying to deflect away from the premiership hangover talk and not coming into this season hungry enough, and that's where I said off the top that it's kind of felt like we needed something to go wrong, and thankfully it's just on-field stuff that's going on at the moment, that we needed something like this to happen for, I guess, the motivation to come back, for the boys to have something to chase. And now it feels like it's there. We'll get a good taste of it on Thursday and whether it's going to spark them into gear or not. But big on the effort. It's just not there whatsoever at the moment.
It's just terrible to see because you're watching a completely different side to a team that went and lifted the Premiership Cup nearly 6 months ago. So all of that are things that can be changed quickly, which is the good thing. Whether it happens quick enough for us to start getting these results turned around, well, that's a different story because at the end of the day, if it doesn't get fixed, then we're going to be falling behind, as you know, in such an even competition. Again, with the effort and not winning those 50-50s, that's a whole different layer to what's going wrong. Again, do you think Fly has some questions about what this game style looks like? Because we're known for playing a pretty loose defense, not in the sense that we let a lot of goals go through, even though we have over the last couple of weeks, but just the fact that we don't have body on body. There's no one-on-ones inside our defensive half, but we've seen over the last 2 weeks that the sides we've played against have exploited us for it, and they've had players kick big number of goals. I just mentioned Logan McDonald, who kicked 4. I don't have to go back to GWS, who had 4 of their forwards kick 15 goals between them. Is it time that we start playing a little bit tighter in defence and sort of ignore that zone defence that's been working for us over the last couple of years? Because we are letting an absurd amount of goals through in our defensive half, and that's not just one person's fault, although there are a lot of players down on form at the minute, and it starts at the top with Darcy Moore, I've got to say. But is it time that we sort of switch it up a little bit and start playing a little bit tighter and sacrifice a bit of an attacking game style in our back half to ensure that these goals don't leak as easily as they are?
Well, clearly we're not scoring that much at the moment either, so it's not even working to serve our offense, which it did in the past couple of years when we did go through little patches of conceding heavy. We were able to still score quite heavily ourselves, and that got us the wins that we did. And we did see early in 2022 and again early in 2023 where we were leaking a lot of goals, and we're kind of having these conversations as well where why are our defenders absolutely nowhere near the opposition's forwards, but we were counteracting that by scoring quite heavily on our offense. So whereas the difference right now is we aren't looking scary whatsoever going forward. It's quite sad to watch at times. And the last 2 weeks we've just got a few junk time goals to help our scoring, but we've been at a point where we're struggling to get past, the 6-7 goal mark for the game, and it's quite astounding to see. So, and then when we do go forward, we don't look like scoring whatsoever.
There's no connection there at all.
Nothing going on. Getting into positions where we're not going to score from, boundary line, shots outside 50. Nick Dacos has to kick one from outside 50 to get us going. It's just, there's quite a few issues all across the park at the moment. And I know we're missing McStay, but we missed him a lot throughout last year as well. And Nathan Murphy, we can't rely on him to come back in and save the day because he's not going to be that guy that's going to be able to change everything. And they're really the only two that are out at the moment that
you would argue that go straight back. Yeah.
Name another. That's going to change a lot.
Probably not in terms of that best 22 right now that I can certainly think of. I mean, Howe's just come back into the team. He was a bit sluggish, but had some good moments as well. So you're right in that sense. The personnel is not the problem. Touch wood, we've actually got a relatively healthy list. The issue, I guess, is how that looks, and maybe that means Tom Mitchell and John Noble find their way back into the team this week. We'll get on St Kilda pretty shortly. So, there's unfortunately a lot of issues that we've already brought up in however long we've been recording this episode. I think most of them are fixable though, which is the most promising thing, and hopefully these are problems that are being identified by our coaching staff relatively quickly, and we're able to turn that around, whether that's structurally and whether that's effort-wise. If it can start on Thursday night against St Kilda and we can build again from that result, hopefully that means we can turn our fortunes around a little bit and get to a good position heading into halfway of the year. You mentioned the forward line, the connection, was almost non-existent. Again, no pressure at all inside 50, hardly laid a tackle in there until the game was already won and done by Sydney. I'm not here to try and single people out. I know there's been a lot said about Ash Johnson over the last few days, and he wasn't great, and there was a reason he got subbed out of the game. He had 3 touches, had a poor shot on goal, and just never looked like threatening to kick a decent score. But he wasn't the only one, and I think the commentary on him has been a little bit harsh. The pressure on him has been quite substantial compared to previous years, and that's for a multitude of reasons, including, of course, McStay not being in the team, him being out of contract at the end of the year. We know that he's got the potential there. I'm still in the camp where I do want to see Ash play at least a couple more weeks because 2 weeks for me coming into the season isn't enough. And to be honest, I don't think anyone realistically can think that you bring Reef in and all of a sudden we win against Sydney by
all of a sudden the pressure's on him.
Well, that's exactly right.
And then if he doesn't deliver,
then what? We're just going to keep going down the list. So, and this is not making an excuse for Ash because he has been poor. There's no doubt about that. But we can just lay off him just a little bit and give him the opportunity to flourish, and then we can have those conversations a month, 5-6 weeks into the season where we do see if he's a fit in his 23. So I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot to play out, but hopefully for our sakes, because we want to see Ash improve. This is not about us slaughtering the guy. We want to see him flourish and have a fantastic career with Collingwood and a great season with us to hopefully kickstart the gears and getting us back into playing good footy.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Ash, I don't know if it's just more how he can come across at times when he's out on the ground, his body language and body demeanour, but it's not necessarily, I don't think, him not wanting to be out there or not wanting to put effort in. It's just how he can kind of come across to fans, and when we're going poorly the way we are and when he's struggling, it can spark a lot of talk about his effort and his want and why is he even out there, and when he got that set shot, it's just like he just needs to kick this, just to, calm everyone down. Unfortunately, he puts it out in the full, and then he got that other opportunity with the banana from the boundary. And, when he's up and about, we've seen him kick magical goals from the boundary like that. So I was kind of hoping, come on, just put this one through and just quieten everyone down, and unfortunately missed that as well. So, I'm on the camp as well of keeping him in there. I don't think it serves anyone any good if we take him out now. Especially Ash himself. So Hopefully he keeps his spot in there, at least for the next, I would say, until at least the bye.
Yeah.
So what's that, another 3 games for him to kind of, it's your spot now, Ash. You know, if you want it, it's yours. You got another 3 weeks. Otherwise, you know, Reef's knocking on the door.
Now, I don't know. I think Fly may have mentioned in his press conference there's a chance Ash won't play. I don't know if he, to be honest, I haven't heard it. I don't know if he said it straight out or if he was implying it potentially. So we have to sort of, I guess, assume for the time being that he is in this team, but he very well could not be, which, again, you understand. Personally, I would have liked to see him play a couple of weeks, but I'm not upset at the same time if he's not in this team. So we've got to see how that one plays out. Before we do move on from this Sydney review, Finn McRae, a lot of talk about him coming back into this team. And if you heard us on our Thursday Extra Content pod, he certainly was a favoured inclusion back into this side. And then everyone's smiles turned to frowns when they found out he was a sub. And he came on with about a few minutes to go, or maybe about 10 minutes to go in that third quarter. Finished with 8 disposals, 88%, over 100 metres gained, a couple of clearances, a couple of inside 50s, a couple of tackles. So all ticks. Enough to play in the starting 22 though?
Yeah, I think we got to get him in there, give him a full game. It's really hard as a sub to come on, and he come on at a time when the game was done almost, so it wasn't like he could do much to change things, but definitely made an impact straight away once he got out there. And if you're not going to play Tom Mitchell, at least you got to have Finn in there. I think it gives him a great opportunity to show his wares and hopefully lock a spot into that best side. But I don't know, he's not really the sub type either. We've seen how we used the sub last year and kind of using Ginnivan a bit for that sub, or Oleg Markov, and just someone that can bring a bit of energy and pace into the game late in the third, early in the fourth quarter. And I know it's Finn McRae. He did bring a lot of energy, but he's not really that type that's going to spark a big change in momentum. So I think he needs full game time and, potentially use Oleg Markov, Bobby Hill, even a Jamie Elliott who's struggling as the sub. Obviously, Elliott, he's struggling, I think, across the 4 quarters at the moment, but he does, have his little patches. Maybe that's a good role for him across the next few weeks to come on as a sub in the third, fourth quarter and kick a couple goals, hopefully, because he's another senior player that looks to be really struggling. And I kind of thought over the off-season he might have been questioning or thinking about potentially hanging it up after winning the premiership, and he's had a really good career, but a lot of injuries have plagued him early days. So but he's keeping on, but I worry for him across the season and his longevity towards the end.
Yeah, again, it's not just him in that forward line, but you're right. He just disappears in games far too often for mine, and hopefully we can provide that spark for him in a sub role potentially. But he's certainly one that's probably going to be in the discussion for potentially being that 23rd player. But I agree. I think Finn needs to get into this team starting from the start. Even if you want to sub him off after 3/4 time for whatever the reason be, we need to keep bringing this youth in to keep these generations moving forward for the Pies. So we'll see how it all plays out. Anything else from this Sydney game, or are we very happy to move on from it?
No, kind of a forgetful one. I know we only played Friday and a few days ago, but it's it was a bit of a nothing game. Not many good things, a lot of bad things, but quite similar to the GWS game in how things kind of went pear-shaped. And yes, like we mentioned earlier, quite a fair few passengers who it's big wake-up calls required across this week.
Although, while Warner and Rowbottom and Goulden and Heaney were all superb and really were the difference in the game, shout out to Cameron Cox, who was able to nullify Grundy a little bit after having an outstanding match against Melbourne in the opening round. So
I actually forgot Grundy was out there until sort of second half. I'm like,
and no one booed him, which I thought was nice.
Yes, correct. Yeah. No one did boo him. No. So for the tweeter who said that he was getting booed, who clearly wasn't at the ground.
Not at all.
If there was any booing when he had the footy, it would have been a potential free kick that went against us. Or
nothing. It was nothing.
That would have been the only. He never got booed because I definitely would have noticed, because it would have upset me if there was any booing. So But yeah, it was good that we were able to nullify him. But yeah, I don't think the rucks played a big impact into this game. But yeah, I'll give shout out to Coxie. I think he might have got a vote for me. I thought
right.
came back pretty well off. He copped a lot
a couple of strong marks.
He copped a lot last week, as has Ash this week, and I thought Cox came back pretty well. So kind of hoping for the same for Ash for next week.
Yeah, and Cameron 2 good games in a row now for him as well. So really building after a quieter second half of the year last year, trying to get that mantle back.
Quiet. My brother, I think he said to me, he thinks Cameron might have got booed from Swans fans. Because we forget he come from Sydney. I don't know if I can't remember if he said it was like as a joke or he's being serious, because we were kind of talking about whether Grundy got booed. And we said, no, he didn't get booed. But I can't remember if he said, Cameron got a little boo from some Swans fans.
Your brother being a massive Swan fan. Well, they were our takeaways from the Sydney game. Let's get the fans' takeaways, because I'm sure there were plenty of comments feeding through all our social media pages. So AskPiesNation is here: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, everywhere you can find any type of interaction on any platform is where we'll be. So Pies Nation, be sure to continue to get involved. So Lukey, I'm not going to hold you back any longer. What did the fans have to say after Friday night?
So Mel's a 5. We have just lost our mojo, thinking we could go into default mode and success will come. Not that easy though. Rest on our laurels and we'll be left behind real quick. Need to refund connection and a different mentality that takes us to the next level. We will do it.
Do you think we didn't give Sydney any respect? Is that what she's implying? I don't know. It seems
they were very good.
They were,
and I went into it saying this is almost a grand final preview. I think Sydney will be one of the top, 3 to 4 contenders this year, as will GWS. So that's another thing that we should remember is we've probably played 2 of the best sides in the competition to start off. It's not like we've lost to one of the lower sides. They're 2 of the hottest sides who've come into this season from what we've seen so far in superb form. So definitely not ones to not give respect to. I don't know if that's what would have happened, but
see.
We definitely want to give St Kilda the respect they deserve.
Yes, exactly right. Derek giving us that side eye,
Craig Byron, skills, unforced turnovers are high, pressure, tackle numbers are way down, depth, Murphy down back and McStay up forward might not be obviously dominant, but they are 2 of the pillars the team is built on. Far from terminal, but the first 2 need to improve to help cover the third.
I think looking forward to the VFL starting. That's for sure. See how these depth players can actually start to build a bit of form and potentially push for spots.
John Walsh, and this is one I mentioned before, I believe we're in the middle of a game style change and the boys are still coming to grips with it.
Like what? That's my answer back. I don't know. It seems like we're playing a very similar game style. I think we need to give a bit of credit to our opposition that they're starting to find us out a little bit, which just means we're going to have to adapt. Hence why I asked the question about our defence, because at the moment it seems like we're just giving them far too much room. And while that might not have been a problem in previous years, the fact that the ball, as I said, is coming out of our forward half so quickly, our defence is on the back foot 95% of the time, and as a result, they're getting easy goals. So is it a structural change, maybe more than a game style change? I don't know. But for me, I haven't seen too much of a different movement or too much of a game style change to what I sort of did over the last couple of years. I don't know if you see it the same.
Do you also, we've seen Brisbane as well, 0-2 now to start the year. Do you play into any or think about how the grand final has had any impact to start this year?
I'm sure there's an element of it. I mean, I feel like this has been one of the shortest pre-seasons we've had. Certainly in my time.
I think it's the first time it's ever happened that the 2 grand finals have started 0-2. So coincidence, maybe, but it's definitely something to ponder. And the counter argument is both the prelim finals that lost have started 2-0.
Exactly right.
So as a week made such a big difference. But I don't know, it's not just the physical toll. I think it's the mental toll of what a grand final week does. Not only for the winners, obviously we can celebrate and have party and, but for the losers as well, the impact it can have such a close loss, the big build up for the game and then the actual game, which was one of the greatest grand finals of all time. And then the emotional toll, whether you've won or lost that game, can have a big impact.
Thank God we won it, Luke. Thank God.
And it's great, it's great to have a premiership hangover. I wouldn't want to have a grand final loss hangover because that's what Brisbane's
done that plenty of times.
Going through at the moment. Adam Miles, we've played two red hot teams to start the season. We've got a few stars that are just not in red hot form right now and Touch is a little off. My opinion, reef in for AJ, McRae in the starting sign and maintain belief.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be all about. I mean, it seems as though the belief has been talked about a lot during the preseason. We haven't quite seen it on the field yet, so that needs to change quickly.
Damien, granny fatigue, preseason, mate. By round 6, they'll click into place.
All right. We'll see.
It'd be nice to look forward and just see where we are in 4 weeks and we'll go, we were overreacting or we're right to say what we're saying. Demetrios Davitus. Collingwood FC is 3 to 4 weeks behind the rest of the competition. Seems to me that Johnson is lacking the skill set required to take a mark and kick a goal. Jamie Elliott is not playing 4 quarters of footy. Pendles is not starting the 2 matches well enough. Cox is making a meal of his ability. Defence is not syncing with Murphy out. It feels out of place. Maynard is fine, so is Josh and Nick Dacos with De Goey and Cameron. But the longer the games are played out, the more obvious it is that the squad is playing catch-up footy. Very hard.
2 things I disagree with that. It's not that Johnson doesn't have the skill set to take a mark and kick. I just don't think he's got the confidence right now to do any of that. We've seen him do it plenty of times. He's had games that he has changed the momentum just off his own boot. He's taken unbelievable marks and kicked some very, very important goals that have gotten us back on track. So I don't know about that. The other one was, what did he say? I've just lost it just in my memory.
Cox making a meal of his
No, before that. I think it was before that.
Pendle's not starting too well. Jamie Elliott not playing 4 quarters.
Sorry, read it again.
Murphy, without Murphy, the defence is not sinking.
Murphy's a great defender, don't get me wrong, and he does a lot for that team. Is him not being in that back 6 enough for us to have seen the difference from our defence last year to what we've seen in the first 2 weeks? I feel like Howe coming back in means with Murphy being the only player not in that back 6, I don't know if it's much of a disparity than it might be led on to be. I'm not sure. Just one to think about, maybe.
Yeah. Rod Neeson, I think it's a great start. And I like this one. I think it's a great start. We were going in premiership favourites. Now that he's gone, the pressure is off. The guys can just take it easy. They have absolutely nothing to prove. Far better to have an easy start, the build-up, peak at the end of the season. Last season, Fly had something to prove at the start of the season and we were cherry ripe. This season, Fly has nothing to prove. It's a long season. You want to peak at finals time, not the start of the season. Just relax, be patient and get behind them.
All right. I'll try and subscribe to that view a little bit.
I'm in that camp a bit though. I just think it is such a long season and we almost messed it up, I thought, last year, is that we started so well and got ourselves into such a good position, ladder position wise. And then we had that little bit of a stuff up towards the end, got back on track. But even you look at and finals is a completely different ball game, but you wouldn't say we played our best football across the 2 finals that we did win. The grand final, I thought we played really well, but those 2 finals could have easily gone another way. And the games leading into the final series is where we were struggling a bit. So you weren't seeing the early season form that we did see. I thought, we might have messed this up a little. And I don't know if that's playing a bit of a part into it, in that, I don't know, we just want to peak maybe a bit later, just work things out for now, get it going.
But if you fall too far behind the 8 ball.
And that's the worry. That's where we need to obviously win this week, but just bank some wins. But I don't know, I think they're more in the boat of, it's not about top 4. You want to finish top 4, but it's just about qualifying, getting in there.
Which is what Fly's been saying this whole time.
Yeah, obviously you want to get in the top 4 and get that bit of a safety net, but it's not the end of the world if we're not in that top 4 and we're just in there, and then we go bang, 4 wins in a row, and do it all at the right time of the year. So it's just something to think about. It is only round 1. We're going into round 2, which makes this season feel just incredibly long.
Strange.
But Nathan Hopper, we conceded 13 goals from turnovers. I heard the AFL average is just 8. Just a bad game. We killed them in centre clearances. It's round 1. We will be fine.
Yeah. It's still a concern, in my opinion. We shouldn't be conceding that much from turnovers at all. In fact, maybe not even half of that. But and we didn't last year. That's why we were able to be really strong. In fact, we were the ones scoring a lot from turnover. We just haven't been able to do the same back. So, yes, it might take time, but hopefully this is not a trend we're seeing a lot more of.
Yeah. Dave Elbow, I reckon we're trying a new game plan and it'll take a few weeks to get it working. We were 5-5 at the start of 2022 and fell 1 point short of the GF. People need to calm the farm and trust that these players don't just forget how to play football.
If they're changing the game plan, then no worries. I'll be proven wrong, but I just haven't seen that being the case right now.
Xavier Keogh, our lack of tall options in the forward line is glaringly obvious. Something is obviously not working with our back line, and we can't say it's because Murphy is out. We played 3/4 of a grand final and won without him. On a positive note, Dacos and Lipinski played out of their skin.
Who was that just read that?
Xavier.
So Xavier's point about Nathan Murphy is what I just tried to articulate a few minutes ago. I didn't quite get the words out there, but that's exactly what I mean in the fact that it's not just Murphy alone is the difference between what we've seen from our backline last year and what we've seen over the first couple of weeks. So hopefully we are able to sharpen up on a few of those points, and he made some good other points as well. So, yeah, don't know.
And that was the final one that I had saved. So,
yeah, well, plenty of great responses, that's for sure, from our Pies Nation community. So be sure to keep getting involved on all our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, podcast, TikTok, everything. We've got some great ventures coming up. So keep an ear out at the end of the pod about what's coming up for Pies Nation. And a great little segment. Again, we love Ask Pies Nation, and it's been great last year seeing everyone praise our team for all the wins. But you know what? After a loss like this, it's good to get the input of fans and getting their thoughts on what might be the case and what we need to do to turn it around. So great to get those opinions. Our last look from this Sydney game is our votes. You sort of preempted a little bit of what might come for your votes, Luke, but let's hear them in the full.
I'll quickly, so one vote actually went to Maynard. Thought he played a pretty good game, but it was pretty hard to find, a third good player on the night. But Maynard, as always, tried his guts out. 2 votes, Cox. Like I mentioned earlier, I thought he just came back really well off a lot of criticism in the opening round game. Took some big marks, a couple going into the defense, intercept marks. He's doing that quite well, the intercept mark.
That's what we need more of.
We need him in the forward line. We need him to kick straight. So 2 votes for Cox and 3 votes, quite obvious, Whisper.
Yep. He gets the 3, no doubt about it. I gave 2 to Cameron again for a second straight week. Again, I mentioned him and Cox's efforts against Grundy, but I just thought Cameron's really starting to come into his own now. He had 5 clearances, which was the 3rd most on the ground as a whole, and 11 of his 17 disposals were contested, along with 4 marks. And he even kicked the goal for us too. So he's kicked goals in, I think, in back-to-back weeks. Did he kick one in the opening round? I can't remember off the top of my head. I think he might have.
He did, yeah.
So he's even starting to prove to be a bit more of a goal kicker as well. And that sort of came from the preseason. And one vote I said raffle it in the rundown. You could have given it to probably not many. I really didn't know who to lean towards. Could have given it to Finn. I'll give it to Bo just for his tackling because no one else seemed to really do that in the forward half. So I'll give that to Bo, but even he was pretty quiet again on Friday night. So that's Sydney done. Let's get that out the road and we can look towards Thursday night. Guess the crowd. Now, we had a bit of a false start last week with Guess the Crowd. Unfortunately, who we wanted to get on couldn't get on, and fortunately we're going to speak to them very shortly because this week there was, I thought there'd be a lot more variance between our guesses, but am I correct in saying we had 2 winners this week and we're not having any of them on today?
So we'll give a shout out. So we've had Johnny Mack on before, so he guessed 78,950. Now it was 78,933, so 17 off.
Very close.
So Johnny Mack, he has been on before. So
he's on standby.
And also, I looked at the timings of both of these guesses. So the other one was David Knows More, so he had 78,950, and he was earlier in the day, so I was going to give it to him anyway, off the timings, but it turns out that Johnny had been on before, so I said, okay, we'll get David on. Unfortunately, he's not available, so we'll get him on at another time, hopefully. But we're going to go with Molly Addison, who we did have on. We were supposed to have on last week, but you kind of messed that up a little. So
maybe we need to make it a prerequisite that if you want to guess the crowd, you have to be available on Monday afternoon to answer our call. So we'll see how this one plays out. But we're going to get Molly on, who, of course, was our closest last week. And, this is going to be our first one of the year. So let's see what she's got for us. Now, did you listen to Marcus? Turn it up, maybe. Turn it up. Have we got headphones? Oh, yes, headphones. Thank you, Derek. As we put these headphones on, because we've got to remember how this all works, let's give Molly a call. And we'll see what she's got to say on our first Guess the Crowd for the year.
Hello.
Molly, is this Molly?
Hello.
No, we got you. Hold on. Jeez, this segment has gone really well this year.
All good.
Got you now?
Yeah.
All right, it's Nicholas here. Welcome to the AskPiesNation podcast. Thank you for joining us for this episode. And even though it's a week late, well done on guessing the crowd last week against the Giants.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry for that. Obviously, being the public holiday, just did not check my phone once that day.
Nah, we don't blame you one bit because who wants to go on social media on their public holiday? But we're going to make it a prerequisite from now on. We're going to make sure you get that Monday availability. But nonetheless, thank you for joining us for our first Guess the Crowd of the year. Well, we said we were going to say you could forget about the Giants game, but we might have to forget about this Sydney game quickly because it was a disappointing night on Friday night. Were you there live watching us? Oh, no, she's gone. She's gone. Oh, that was a nice build-up as well. I'm telling you, this segment is flying at the moment. We're going really well. We're going to try it for a third time, Molly.
Hello, are we there?
We good? Are we good?
Yeah, I can't really hear you guys. You keep cutting out.
I don't know what's going on. We'll try our best with what we've got. But in the meantime, were you there on Friday night to watch us, unfortunately, start our season 0-2?
No, I wasn't. I was actually didn't even watch the game this week. I was actually driving. I was traveling back to my hometown for the weekend. So I was planning on watching the replay, but given the result, I didn't get around to that this week.
You didn't miss much.
G'day, Molly. Thanks for coming on and congratulations on your win last week. Now, I think you might have messaged back the page saying you had a good story about how you got to your crowd prediction. Do you want to tell us what was your little strategy for your crowd prediction last week?
No. I'm guessing. Oh, no, it's all happening at the moment. We're going to try again. Say that question again, Luke. We'll try again.
Have you got me there, Molly?
No.
We're hearing her.
We are. Well, we might have to delay again.
That's all right.
Let's...
Maybe I'm not plugged in.
I don't know. Well, you've been plugged. I hope you're plugged in. We've been talking for the last half an hour. Luke. We'd be a bit worried if you weren't plugged in. Try say your question. We'll go one more time. Luke, go again.
Hello, Molly. Have you got me?
Nah, we don't. All right. Well, if you're listening, Molly, we're going to have to delay, I think. And it just might mean that we get you on for another time. I don't know if you're still hearing us, but it doesn't seem like this is working too well. Nah. All right. I think we're going to have to hold this for now. So sorry, Molly, that this hasn't worked, but we will get you on the pod because we do want to hear about your story and your time as a Pies fan, of course. So be sure to stick around and hopefully we'll speak to you soon. But unfortunately, we're going to have to hang up and it's not going to quite work for us. So, Luke, make sure you text her and message her and make sure that for some reason, some technical issues, we just weren't able to make it happen tonight.
The greatest segment of all time has got off to a horrible start.
We've gone from we had no luck last week, no answers, and then the two that win nothing, and then now we hit the call from last week.
Who's going worse, Collingwood or us?
Oh, gee, I hope it's not a precursor to what's going to come. Well, look, please don't let that deter you from being involved in Guess the Crowd because we certainly want you to be involved. So be sure to get in front of all our social media pages and keep an eye out for the game day posts that Lukey does put out prior to our matches. It's going to be coming up pretty early, of course, because it's a Thursday night game. So Instagram and Twitter specifically for Guess the Crowd, and you'll guess the margins as well, which we're not giving any shout outs to because we lost, so we don't want to worry about that. And that's Guess the Crowd for another week. I'm sure third time lucky next week after a big win against the Saints will be firing and ready to go, and we'll have no more technical issues to look at. So speaking of, let's get to this St Kilda preview then. And hopefully there's no more false starts and we can get ourselves fit and firing because we're playing a St Kilda team, Luke, that came very close to upsetting Geelong at the Cattery on Saturday night. I thought they were going to pinch it in the end, but some inaccuracy probably cost them as a result, and they went down by
hometown umpire.
Yeah, that's probably true. But what do you expect from the Cats? They went down by 8 points, but I'll tell you what, they looked dangerous at times throughout the night. And as I said, I felt like they were really going to run away with it at certain points of the game. A couple of notes that took my eye from that match between the Saints and the Cats on Saturday night. 3 goals, 8 they scored from stoppages. Now, of course, I said that was inaccurate, but a lot of their scoring opportunities came from that source. So it just puts a lot more importance on the fact that we need to be winning the football from the middle. We won the clearances against Sydney on Friday night. But again, because the ball was coming out of our attacking 50 so quickly, those clearances had little to none impact on the game. St Kilda, on the meanwhile, scoring opportunities from stoppages, they were able to find a way. I know they didn't win the clearances on the night against Geelong, but they were able to actually have meaningful clearances. And you look at Jack Steele as an example, he had 9 against Geelong. So there's certainly one that they're going to try and expose us with and try and win the ball straight from the middle. And again, efficiency wasn't their strong suit, but their effort was. They had a lot of great efforts against the Cats. They took them right down to the wire. And, well, if we don't bring our A game against St Kilda, Luke, then that effort is going to be exposed for a third straight week.
You don't win many games down at Geelong, and they got pretty close, and I thought quite unlucky at the end with some certain decisions that went against them. But, they're one of my teams heading into this year that I thought could be one that rise quickly up the ladder. I know they made a finals series last year and finished the year really strong, but just a team that can potentially move themselves into top 4 calculations if they really wanted to. But yeah, I'm really worried about who we're facing in their forward line. Max King, Tim Membry.
That's what I was going to get to.
Those two come to mind as, and you've thrown Jack Higgins as well and Machito Owens. And yeah, they've got a very dangerous forward line. Rowan Marshall in the ruck as well. It's going to be not an easy match whatsoever. Yeah,
so that forward line, I agree, can be a very difficult one to stop when they get on top of their game. Their small forwards didn't have the greatest of nights, but Tim Membry and Max King, they kicked 5 of St Kilda's 9 goals on Saturday night. And if it wasn't for them, the Saints wouldn't have been anywhere near it. So, again, even more pressure now on that defence. This is where I think Darcy Moore does need to be have a little bit more focus towards his actual opponent. Rather than the structures that may be taking place in the back half. I think this is a game where we get Frampton in. It might not necessarily be in the forward line. I wouldn't mind seeing him go back inside defensive 50 to play a role on potentially a Max King because I feel like if King gets off the chain early, it's going to be very tough to start pegging back the league, especially with the lack of forward presence we have had. So if we want to play Frampton up forward, doesn't bother me too much, but I think he'd be well versed putting him in the back line as well. I think that would be just as important into us trying to nullify St Kilda's impact. So Frampton potentially for me is one that definitely comes in. They had 28 shots from 44 entries against Geelong.
Very efficient.
Absolutely. So they might not have been efficient on the scoreboard, but they were certainly creating opportunities from it. So we need to get down to the root of that as well. Again, I asked the boys in terms of Marcus and Jack this on Thursday. I asked you the same question. So what's one aspect of our game that has really disappointed you over the last couple of weeks that you want to see rectified first and foremost on Thursday night against the Saints?
Well, I think our full ground defense, for one, from a kick out point of view, teams seem to be chopping us apart very easily from that. But I'd like to see the flow of our offense get back and grooving. I think Quaynors had a bit of a struggle to start the year, and obviously not having Noble out there coming on as a sub in the opening round and then not playing this week at all. I think those two guys, the run they brought from the halfback, Oleg Markov, another one that he hasn't done anything wrong yet, but he hasn't quite been what he was doing last year. Just that run off the halfback, and that's where a lot of our scores were coming from, was off our halfback and the ball movement that would start from there. And it didn't necessarily matter so much if we were winning the ball out of the middle because we were doing all our work from the halfback line. So that's probably the one thing that I would look at, getting guys like Quaynor and potentially Noble back in there and Oleg Markov into the game. Nick Dacos, another one that potentially you throw into the halfback. I know he's absolutely killing it in the middle, but is he the spark that halfback line needs? Darcy Moore as well. It's been hard on him to play his natural game. I think he's having to do a lot more than what he normally would want to do in terms of key defensive staying on the number one forwards and not being able to just roam away and do his own thing and get his kicking into it as well. So that's probably the one thing that's really lacking and making us not look dangerous whatsoever with our attacking game style at the moment.
Is Tom Mitchell a shout to come back into this team, you think?
Well, it depends what's going on with him. Is he injured? Is he being managed? Is he just out of form? Yeah. Bit of discussion around
Assuming he's available.
Assuming he's available. You'd like to probably see him in, but I wouldn't want to be taking McRae out.
No.
I think I'd like to see Noble getting in there. I haven't really thought about ins and outs, and there's guys I want to see come in, but I haven't. It's quite who do you work out to take out of that side, despite us playing pretty poorly across the opening 2 rounds. You feel like all the pieces are quite pretty much in there. It's just getting it going at the moment. But yeah, what about? Do you think? Would you bring?
If there's scope to have him and Mitchell and McRae in the same team, absolutely. I think we still need someone that can go in.
The extractor, almost.
Absolutely. Yeah. I still feel like there is a role for that in that team. We might not need Mitchell to get the 20s and 30 disposals anymore. We just need him to get in there, create pressure, create a contested situation, win clearances. That's what we brought him into the team for in the first place. That's what made him so strong in our final series, particularly our grand final. So this is where I'd like to see him back into the team. If it's for the expense of anybody, I'm not sure. I don't think you can warrant dropping someone like a Lipinski or a Hoskin Elliott or anything like that. It's just hard. As poorly as we have been playing, it's hard to really pinpoint it on certain people in terms of this. Don't get me wrong. There's some on the verge of dropping out of this best 23. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't really see anyone shining right now to say we're probably not going to pick you into the team. A few on notice, particularly in that forward line. Not as much competition in that forward line with no McStay, I must say. So maybe they're just a bit comfortable knowing that this spot might be in for a week. Maybe a Harvey Harrison's knocking down the door saying, hey, I liked my senior experience last year. Wouldn't mind getting me back into that team. He's been an emergency since the start of the year and in that grand final side. So I'm sure he's very close to the mark, and a lot of those youngsters as well. Look at someone like Ed Allen in the midfield. I'm sure he's pretty keen to get himself into this senior team once the VFL gets underway this weekend. So if the competition can start building in terms of our depth, then maybe it might put a few more players on notice. But for now, nobody really noticeable. As I said, I really want to see Frampton in this team. Again, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head who comes out for him straight away. I don't think you could get rid of Markov if you're not playing Noble, but then do you do a straight swap and put Noble in for Markov? I'm not sure. Do we play around with the sub role potentially? There's a lot of questions to be asked and not a lot of time to work it out.
Yeah, I think I'd look at putting the Markov as the sub. I love him, but it would be one way to get McRae into that starting side. Yeah. I don't know what you're doing with Tom Mitchell. I don't really want to think about it in case he's not potentially even in calculations, depending on if he's injured or if he's. It was a very, and I know you boys spoke about it on last week's bonus episode about Tom Mitchell and what was actually going on there, because
it's very strange
to be managed after one game. So clearly, I think there's some kind of injury. I think we've seen across some socials it could have been an ankle potentially. So I'm probably not thinking about him for this week. Wanting to see McRae get a full game and probably looking at getting Noble in there somehow.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's very hard.
It's the same situation we've had last year, except we're not winning games.
And you probably want to get Frampton in there to try and
I think he has to play. We've got to put him in
whether
somewhere.
It's you have the option to shore up the defence or you can throw him forward and try and create it. Not so much that he's going to be the one kicking our goals and taking the big marks, but creating that decoy to let the other guys get a bit more freedom in that forward line.
I'd rather them drop Johnson for Frampton than Johnson for McInnes right now.
Yeah.
I'd have to say.
Yeah. So bit to play out.
Yes, certainly.
But at the same time, it's also thinking about not wanting to disrupt too many things and just understand that it's going to take some time, and you make too many changes every week, then no one knows what's going on, and it ends up a bit messy. So I think it'll be a fairly consistent side this week, unless there's any injuries or anything that we don't know about, and it will be more about building that base. Best 22, best 23 going forward into the season. And then it's up to guys to work their way in, or injuries to force some guys out.
Absolutely. Spud's game as well on Thursday night is Saints and Pies clash. So as we know, mental health is such a big thing going around lately, and I'm glad we're bringing a lot more awareness to it. So be sure to get a bit more of an idea of what it's about, and of course the legacy that Danny Frawley's brought onto, of course, all of us in the football community. Let's get your tips and give me your headline. Yeah, Friday morning headline.
I forgot about this one. Pies. I missed the prediction last week, but I had it on the Instagram comments. But I'll go with the same one this week. Pies by 21.
Okay.
Do we want to do a crowd prediction as well?
You want to do a crowd prediction?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Don't mind that.
Go on.
I think we'll get Thursday night. 70,000, 70.5.
70.5.
So just a touch over 70,000.
Headline?
You
Off
give
the
me
top of
your
your head.
tips.
All right,
let me
all
quickly
right.
think of one.
I'll say Pies by, if we're going to bounce back, we're going to bounce back big. I'll say 27 points that we'll get up. Crowd, St Kilda home game, remember? I think might get mid-60s, early to mid-60s. I'll say 63.
They are being pushed to get their Saints fans as well. It is like you said, it is their home game, but they're really
there'll be a bit of confidence there coming off the Geelong game. So Derek, you better go on MCG. Oh, you're working. I know.
And their first game back in Melbourne. I know they played in Geelong last week, but first kind of game back in the heart of Melbourne for this year. So they'll have a lot of fans there as well.
Headline.
All right. I said it. I put a photo up of the Premiership hat on Twitter, and I said we're still the Kings. So the headline, they're still the Kings. Pies are back. So Pies will bounce back or win and remind everyone that we're still the Kings of the AFL.
Very nice. How about this one? I'm going to go Whisper gets 50 in game 50. 50th game, which is an outstanding achievement for Nakos.
Yeah.
And he's had pretty high dispersal counts and motivation coming from Caleb Sarong, who just torched the line yesterday with 46. Let's go with Dakes. Let's say he has 50 in that
He
midfield.
did get 42 last time against the Saints.
There you go. So I'm on to something.
The gather round last year. So.
I'm on to something, that's for sure. Now, before we wrap up, thank you to everyone that watches and listens and gets involved, because it is our 150th episode. And fair to say, there's been times over the journey we didn't think we'd get this far, but the fact that we have, it's awesome to have brought so much joy to Pies fans over the last 6 years, especially with what took place last year and being able to have a forum where we can chat about it, and not just that, involve fans and get them on the pod and have chats to them on social media. It's been fantastic. Wouldn't miss it for the world. And I know, speak on behalf of everyone, Luke and Marcus and Jack, we love doing this. We love bringing the fans in. We love having a say on Collingwood, and we love having a role to play in a lot of people's lives with our podcast. So thank you, everybody. That's all I've got to say.
Absolutely agree with all those sentiments, Nico. It's been a joy so far, and hopefully many more episodes to come. And I think it's been a good little space for a lot of Pies fans to get their voices heard. And obviously we talk a lot on here, but the idea is to get as many Pies fans on here as well, whether it's through the phone or even hopefully getting some into the studio as well as we go on, and getting the opinions of all of them heard across the AskPiesNation and gets the crowd and segments like that, because at the end of the day, it's about the fans, and we want to hear from the real diehards out there that have been, supporting for 50 years, and this is their one chance, to say what they really thought about our loss against the Giants or how good it was, the Premiership. And I thought, the Premiership was a nice little top off after 5 years of doing just this podcast, the social media page was at the 10-year mark. So it's been, a big journey and a really fun one with hopefully many more to come.
And speaking of support, we thought it'd be a good time with episode 150 run and done. We want to introduce to you Pies Nation Premium. Now, this is a fantastic extra layer for the Pies Nation podcast, and it's going to allow you guys, the fans, to get a lot more content. And we've seen a little bit with our Thursday pods. Well, you can expect a lot more of that thanks to Pies Nation Premium. So, as you know, obviously we've got costs that we need to keep track of, whether it's studio or editing or the like. And people that do subscribe, well, they've got direct impact on keeping this show going. So it's been great to have this support from all across our social media platforms, but now you have the opportunity to provide direct impact for what we do as a show. In return, again, we've got some great content. It's already starting with our Thursday second preview episodes, which we're going to bring exclusively to our subscribed fan base every single week. And hopefully that gives you a bit more of an analysis into the game coming up. And look, whether you want to support us through this donation method or you do want to see more content, we hope that Pies Nation Premium is the way for you to lend your hand in giving us a hand, but also getting that extra bit of black and white content, not the Fox Footy Labs or any of those childish setups. This is premium stuff, so we want to give you the best content possible. Now, it allows us to keep taking this Pies Nation army for the ride. And the best part about Pies Nation Premium, so not only are these podcasts going to be behind a paywall, because we love doing these Monday pods and we think they're some of the best content that we do make. So this stuff is still going to be free, don't you worry. The extra content that you get, though, is going to be second to none. We're going to have special guests. We're going to have different games that we play, lots of previews of the upcoming week, maybe some player ratings as well. There's a lot to come with the extra content, which we're really excited to bring you. The best part, we're not asking for an arm and a leg from you. $5 a month. That's pot these days? Probably not a pot these days. But
well, I bought a coffee today. It's $6.50.
$6.50
for one coffee. So,
there you go.
That's for one.
So there's the example right there. So instead of wasting your time buying a $6.50 coffee every day, buy a $5 coffee for us for just a month and you get all that content for you. So that is the idea. And if you don't want to do the $5 a month and you just want to give us the outright for a year subscription, $42. That's a 30% discount as well. So that's going to be fantastic. Now, keep an eye out on all the socials because we're going to post all the links and all the information that you need to subscribe to us over the next week. And as we said, we've got a lot of great extra content coming for you. This stuff is still going to be the heart and soul of what we do, and nothing about that will change. We'll still get you guess the crowd when the technology is working, and also all of the other great segments that come with these shows. But we are looking forward to giving you a lot more stuff that, as I said, is going to give us a direct impact into what we do. And I'm sure you agree, Luca, with all the sentiments that I've just mentioned. But the idea is that we want to give fans the opportunity to support us in a way that gives something back to them. It's not just us taking money for ourselves. We're giving it back to you.
Yeah, and I've often had messages come through to the page and the like asking how can we help support you boys, and we haven't really had anything set up in the past. So this is a good little way for those people, plus hopefully many more, to help support us and via a very small amount that helps keep this thing going because it is a fun thing we do and we do want to keep it going, but it obviously has its costs like everything these days, and they are just continuing to go up. So we need the support more than ever, but also I think it gives us a great platform to be able to delve into some extra content that we can hopefully deliver across the year and expand it into different areas, bring on different people potentially, and hear a lot more from the fans that listen in, week out. So, great that we're finally getting it up and running, and hopefully many successes to continue to come.
Absolutely. We want to keep this going just as much as I'm sure all the listeners and viewers want to as well. So this is your chance to do that. And as I said, have a great impact on what we do as a podcast. So keep an eye out on all the socials. Luke will be posting stuff throughout the week. And we're looking forward to getting that content straight to you. And hopefully it starts with a big win against the Saints on Thursday night at the G. Luke, thanks for making the way down and getting through the recovery session with me.
Another tough episode, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been been blessed the last couple of years, so we had to do a few tough episodes to start the year off. But yeah, hopefully starts to turn around by this Thursday.
As long as the fortunes change, then I'm happy to do a few of these episodes every so often. But until next time, I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, or watching the Pies Nation podcast maybe, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold.